How are you? I'm Jeff Slakey. Happy New Year here in the Mason County Sheriff's Office for another Sheriff Sit Down presented by our great friends at Our Community Credit Union. Here with Mason County Sheriff Ryan Spurling. How you doing, buddy?
Good. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. There's a lot of history in this building, and there's a lot of history in this office. Before this, your predecessor, Sheriff Salisbury, spent most of his time as sheriff in this office, and so it's seen a lot of changes and a lot of positive movement when it comes to the sheriff's office over these years.
Yeah, with Sheriff Salisbury, my sheriff, serving for 16 years. He was the longest serving sheriff in the history of Mason County all the way back to 1854.
That's amazing.
There's only been 41 elected sheriffs, and that has a little bit to do with him going 4 terms, and then before him, Sheriff Weibark being on for 3 terms.
Yeah, it's amazing kind of once you're in this position, the good you can do as the elected sheriff for the county, and how kind of that consistency helps over the, well, I guess a little over 200 years or something if you do the math right. Is that how that works?
Yeah.
Of Mason County? It's
long
amazing.
Before Washington was even a state.
Yeah.
You know, my daughter is a deputy over in Eastern Washington, and one of the things I told her was to look for an agency that doesn't have conflict-driven turnover within the agency, to where they've been consistent and they have a strong culture. And that's one of the things that Sheriff Weibark and Sheriff Salisbury have created, and I've tried to follow through with.
Well, I think too, when you think about it, that disseminates to the population of the county. They feel a sense of
Ownership.
ownership, a sense of comfort, a sense of how they've elected you to represent them, and the accessibility that I knew with Sheriff Salisbury through my time with him and with you as well really helps. I mean, I don't know if you can see through we're street level, right? You're not in some ivory tower making decisions that may or may not positively or negatively impact the citizenry. You're here on the ground, whether through the different lunches and breakfasts that you've had that have always been well attended, or just the fact that you're so accessible, not only as the sheriff of record here, but as a department in general.
Well, we take it very seriously that we work for our citizens. The citizens have the authority to elect local officials. That gives them the power and the authority to put in that position who they feel is best going to serve the citizens. And as an office, we're still small enough that we're connected to the community,
right,
and not so siloed like some of the bigger counties. And we take that very seriously. We want to be hearing from our citizens, because that's who we work for, and that's who has the authority to put the next person in, or however it is that the citizens feel is best.
I want to talk about that in a second, but you also bring up a great point where the Belfair office is a relatively new satellite office for the main branch here in the sheriff's office, whereas larger counties, Pierce, King, I'm thinking of, they've got satellite sheriff offices all over the place, kind of what you're talking about.
And oftentimes you'll have cities that contract with the county sheriff, and they'll have their own police department for a city, but it's actually run by the sheriff's office, and they have their own chain of command within that. We don't have that here because we have only one incorporated city. And with Belfair, we've had an office up there for years. It wasn't until 2014 Sheriff Salisbury, and he actually dedicated the building to Sheriff Weibark, who had the vision to have an office up there. But in 2014, when I was put up there as the patrol chief, it was the first time we had an evidence system, all of our computers, so that the deputies that are working in the North End didn't have to come to Shelton to write their reports. And that was a big deal for us, because that presence reduces crime.
It's kind of like the see something, say something, you're there, people understand that despite the distances across the county, from getting from one end of the county to the other end of the county can take a while. So when you see that presence here, the bad guys know, don't mess around, because there is law enforcement, and the law enforcement is visible here. You mentioned, and we talked about this last month, was the possibility of the citizens moving forward, perhaps not being able to fully choose their sheriff in their county, kind of centralizing that into a state office. Do you have any new information on that? Or I know we've had kind of there's a lull, during the December, but have you heard any more about that?
No, there is. It's Washington Coalition on Police Accountability that's trying to push and basically take away the authority of a local citizen to keep their sheriff seated if somebody else felt that they did something wrong, or elect the sheriff that they want. And we put something out on our Facebook page and our social media, and if you want to see what our stance is on that, it's from the Washington State Sheriff's Association. All 39 sheriffs are in agreement with that's not the best way to have standards. First off, as sheriffs, we agree that sheriffs should have standards. We've been advocating for that for a long time.
Right.
And basically in the past, you just had to be 18 years of age and go through the academy within a year. We've been advocating, and now this coalition is trying to take the power from our citizens, at least in our view, and put it at a state level to where somebody else would have control over who policed or was the senior executive law enforcement in the county.
And that is something specifically unique to a sheriff's office, is that the citizens of that county voice through their vote who represents them in law enforcement, whereas cities go through their police chiefs, by a hiring process, or maybe there's a panel,
an appointment. Yeah.
And maybe there's a panel that looks over the hires, and offers their opinions, but it's not the same as the, however many 32,000 eligible voters in Mason County all voicing their opinions onto who represents them.
Absolutely, and a lot of people just don't realize that in Washington State particularly, the position of sheriff is written into the Constitution of Washington State. And so it's a constitutional position is what it's referred to as. And 38 of our 39 sheriffs are elected by the citizens. And sheriffs are the only elected law enforcement officials in the world. Everybody else is appointed. Chief Batiste of the State Patrol is appointed by the governor. The chief in the city is appointed by the mayor and the city council. FBI, they're appointed by politicians. So they work for politicians, and if they don't do their bidding to some degree,
right,
depending on who that politician is, they can be removed. The sheriff is the only one that can't be removed by a politician, has to be removed by the citizens themselves. So the citizens have that direct authority.
When we talk about the lunches that I brought up earlier, you are at the Oyster Bank in Hoodsport, you're at breakfast time out at Spencer Lake, you have lunch availabilities now at the Bistro at Lakeland Village, and then you spend time out in Matlock talking with folks after the Fire District 12 meetings.
Yes.
When I was listening in and at the luncheon at the Oyster Bank this last week, again, the topic of conversation came up on the new reporting process. And it's kind of an interesting one to think about now, especially as we have so many snowbirds that head down south to kind of stay warm. One of the things that I heard about this was a kind of a great way to use this service was you come back from the desert or wherever you come back from and your lawnmower's missing. I mean, that's not a 911 call.
Yeah, you don't know when it was stolen.
Right.
You don't have any suspect information. It's not in progress.
But it adds to, and again, paint the picture of how reporting that through the online system, someone will get a call and someone will get a case number, associated with it.
So they can file for insurance.
Sure,
the
for
case number
sure.
much faster.
And it also helps paint a picture of a potential string of similar crimes.
Yes. Well, we're tracking the crimes regardless of how it comes in. And as those come up, and you can see them on our website under crime reporting, and it'll show you even on a Google Earth where the crimes are occurring. And we look for those patterns so that we can get out and be proactive with it as well.
And then I would imagine in this scenario, if you saw an uptick in lawnmowers being reported in the spring, you as the sheriff or someone here in the office would make time to go up to one of the divisions in Lake Cushman, like if it looked like it was a specific one or something, and say, listen, we've noticed every spring there's a rise in this. Here are some additional steps that you can do to protect yourself and help us, maybe think about finally getting cameras, or know that call on your neighbors who are still around here in the wintertime, things like that.
Absolutely. It's going to lead towards education and crime prevention. Patterns are always going to be able to help us. And again, as we talked about in the last couple sit downs, is we really haven't been able to be proactive in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
We've been more reactive than anything. We've just been overwhelmed. We're excited that this year we're moving forward with some proactivity, and I'm excited to get out there and actually prevent crimes from occurring through presence, through statistics, through education. We're partnering better with our homeowners associations, with our neighborhood watches, and getting involved in the community more, because we need the citizens' help to do this, and it takes all of us to have a safe community.
And it's not like you guys are going to be haranguing, certain segments of the population over and over. You're working with these homeowners associations, and you may find out that the concerns that they have are not, I don't want to say not justified, but there may be a different issue that you can help them get to an answer for on this one.
Absolutely. And it's interesting how rumors fly too.
Right.
I'll hear, hey, we have a crime spree, and I'll go back and I'll look at all of our records, and we had 3 thefts in the area. But to that community, that's really a big deal.
Yeah.
And that is a crime spree. But sometimes it also blows up into something it's not. So being able to come back and bring them hard data, and then ways to prevent that from occurring and get them involved is a very important thing to us.
Yeah. It seems like that style of community policing, I guess, if you will. And I remember here in the city that one of the former chiefs was big into that. He would be walking around a lot, and people would see the presence and feel the presence, kind of like what we were talking about earlier. And the current Chief Kostad as well, getting out there and just making sure people know that you aren't sitting behind a desk. You have an 8-hour shift, and you're not just, like you said, waiting for a crime, reacting to the call coming in. You're getting out there and you're making these steps. It's a lot of hard work in the forefront, in the start of it, but after everything kind of takes hold and starts rolling, that is when you can, and as a sheriff, I would imagine, can sit here behind your desk and take a deep breath and think about what's the next step to protect the citizens.
Absolutely. Let's give the example of opening that North Precinct. And I've said this before, we had 254 approximately burglaries that year in that area. Just by opening and being a little more proactive, we reduced it by over 90 in 1 year. That's 90 less victims of burglary. That's 90 less homes that felt violated because somebody broke in and stole their stuff. That's 90 less insurance claims. Those are big deals in our community.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever been burglarized, and I've had stuff stolen myself, that is a violating feeling, and you feel very vulnerable. So the more we can reduce that through proactivity, the better off. But it takes the whole community, because there's not enough of us.
Sure.
With 0.9 deputies per 1,000 citizens, there's not enough of us to be everywhere. So
I just thought of this, and I sent this to you over the last couple of weeks. I got a phone call. I got a voicemail from someone purporting to be a Mason County Sheriff's officer, and when they get to the name, it's kind of like, hey, this is Officer from the Mason County Sheriff's. We got something really important we need to talk to you about, and it was a Port Townsend number. I didn't call it back. I forwarded it off to you so you get a laugh over Christmas. And again, just talk to folks about what will happen on a reach out, on a call from the sheriff's office. I know even the phone numbers can be spoofed, so even seeing a 462 number may not be enough to be a telltale sign. But what are people going to hear? What information will be given? What won't be given when it comes to a call from the department? And what do you do if you get one of these wild
First
calls?
off, it's rare. We're not going to call you and tell you you have a warrant. We're not going to call you and tell you to get Bitcoin to pay off something because you didn't show up to jury duty. There's a lot of clever scams out there, and as you said, they can spoof. They'll actually sometimes look at our rosters and use a deputy's name that's legitimate name. Best thing to do is say, okay, thank you, hang up, and then call the non-emergency 911 number, which we can give out.
Yeah, I'll put that on the screen for sure.
And verify that it came from us, or call the sheriff's office directly, separate from these phone calls, to see if it's even legit. And almost always it's going to be some type of a scam. And some of them are pretty convincing. And one thing they always do is they put this sense of urgency that you're going to be in trouble if you don't respond right now. No, we don't have any time. They're really good at that.
Yeah.
And they have gotten some people that wouldn't normally be scammed because of that sense of urgency. Don't fall for it. That's not the way we operate, and we're not going to call you and tell you you have to pay some kind of thing, or we're going to take you to jail.
We talk a lot about how supportive Mason County citizens are to law enforcement.
Yes.
So when you get a call like that and they are aggressive on the phone, but say we're with the sheriff's office, it does add a sense of, oh, geez, what did I do wrong? Like, you're thinking back in your head, did I miss a ticket, or did something not come to my right mail address? But then you can hear certain things like Bitcoin. And yeah, you're not accepting Bitcoin here. You're not going to be.
And if my deputies are calling and being that aggressive with you on the phone, I want to know about it, because they need to be retrained.
Sure. And so just if it feels off and they're on the phone, even if, let's say it was a real deal, right? Let's say
still call back and check.
Call back and check. Or they say, we're 5 minutes from your house with the sheriff's office SWAT car. We're ready to come and get you.
We're not going to call if we're showing
No.
up with the SWAT car,
No.
just so you know.
But you say, okay, well, I'll wait and see what happens. Okay, well, thank you. I'll wait for you to show up here. This isn't the first time I had a call like this. And
No, I was with you when you had one before.
The last time they called, I go, okay, well, I'm close friends with your boss, and they didn't care. They must have a script or something. They kept going. It's like, well, okay, I'm just going to check with your boss on this one. The sheriff. There's excuses, and they have ways to manipulate that phone conversation to get you feeling like you are minutes away from coming to the jail.
And it's always that urgency thing, whether it be on the computer or whatever. We're going to lock your computer. We're going to do this. Yeah.
That's a tough one there. So just as you look into the new year, try not to get fooled. Check back, do the due diligence, and there will be people here at the office or on the non-emergency line that can confirm that was not a legitimate call. What's the sheriff's office looking like here for 2025? You got some contracts figured out. You're getting some more employees. I see posts online all the time of folks coming back who were once here or coming into the system, both on the patrol and on the jail side. So what's it look like here for 2025?
We're excited. We've got great team, we've got great people, we've got a great community, and you start putting those things together and you start having even better service. The big thing, again, as we talked about, is a set team, a sheriff's enforcement team that we are putting together this year, to where their whole goal will be proactivity. We just haven't been able to be proactive. It could be we're having a rash of accidents, collisions in an area, and we go out and do a saturation to send the message that you're going to have to abide by the laws in this area, because we've had a lot of people driving crazily.
Right.
Our fatality rates in Washington State are high as they've been in 33 years. We had 810 fatalities in 2023, which is, like I said, a 33-year high. So there's things, the State Patrol's already getting involved here locally and has reduced that number. So that may be the issue. It could be burglaries are happening in an area, thefts are happening in an area. Maybe we have quite a few of them, these problem areas where a piece of property is just so full of trash and motorhomes with septics.
Yeah.
And we partner with the health department and with code enforcement, and what is some of the barriers that have prevented us from doing anything with that. Hopefully this team will start to navigate those barriers and mitigate them and get some things done.
Is that is code enforcement kind of like I don't want to say the ultimate, but the ultimate proactive step, that where a code enforcer is driving around, and I'm thinking of the city because we're right here downtown, but like driving around and noticing. I remember, I think we've talked about this, where it's like the broken window. Like if you have one broken window, if you don't do something about it, then all of a sudden, then there's graffiti. And then if you don't do something about the graffiti, then there's, maybe an encampment that pops up. And if there's
wasn't that Giuliani's in New York City back in the
something
80s
like
and 90s? It was no broken windows was his campaign
in
New York.
Yeah, so if you have a code enforcement officer or a fleet of those, if that ever is in the budget or in the works, like they're the ones that are going out and nipping that initial crime early. And that helps the ripple effect, or?
Well, code enforcement doesn't have the authority to go onto property if the person doesn't want them on there.
Okay.
Now, we do if there is a crime that occurs or if we have a search warrant. So it's not that code enforcement can do it by themselves, not by any means, and they're pretty short-staffed, and they're not with our office. But it's a matter of partnering with their strengths and their abilities,
Right.
our strengths,
Okay.
our abilities, along with the health department, septic, sewage, that type of stuff. And if we can bring those elements together, because oftentimes we're so busy in opposite directions as a county that we don't bring our resources to bear. And we're hoping the SET team may be able to facilitate some of that as well.
I see what you're saying. These are always great conversations. Of course, if you ever have any questions for Sheriff Spurling here, the different lunches and breakfasts that he has across the county monthly are great opportunities there. You can always send me questions to ask him as well, and I don't have to use your name if you have anything sensitive you want to ask or have
And I get emails
concern.
and phone calls. Just met with a citizen on an individual basis yesterday for a concern, so always available for that as well.
Well, and that circles us right back to the beginning of the conversation when it comes to the accessibility of the staff here at the Sheriff's Office, the accessibility to kind of get answers done, and that's what makes Mason such a unique county to live in and work in here, and also a draw, as you've told me in the past, on finding great employees here that want to make a life here and become ingrained in the community.
And the community supports them, and that's a big deal, because you go to some of these bigger communities, they don't necessarily support their local law enforcement. And that's a recruiting tool that we have, even though we can't pay as much as some of our surrounding counties with a much bigger tax base, is that they will be embraced by the community, and that's almost always the case here in Mason County, and I'm so proud to live here.
Well, one more thing then. One way that you can also embrace, I don't know if we're going to have another interview before this happens, but the Polar Plunge is coming up February 7th. Is that right? The 8th, the first Saturday, second Saturday in February, something like that. It's out at the Alderbrook. I'll put the notes of when it is. It is a hoot, and we've been doing it for 15 years now. And it's always a great time. There are some really huge fundraisers in our community. There's going to be raffles and prizes.
Band.
And the band will be there again. I'll be there doing announcements.
Free hot chocolate.
And chocolate and chowder from the Alderbrook. It is a great time. And whether you decide to come out and jump in or wade into the water is how we're doing it now. Regardless, come on out and cheer us on, because it is a fun thing. Hood Canal Lions have been putting this on in a partnership with so many of the great emergency services, and money gets doled back out to the emergency services for stuff they need, and it's just been a hoot. And there's been times, were you around when it was at the Port of Hoodsport and it was ice?
I started right after it moved to Alderbrook. Yeah.
Well, you gotten lucky then, because I was just talking to Severance here at the luncheon, and he's like, I remember when it was ice on the canal and we were jumping in, and it was, I was driving out and I looked and I could see the ice. I go, what am I getting myself into this year? This is a mess, but it is always so much fun. And it is a great community support for the office and for the different departments that get the money. But it's a fun one. It's that Saturday, first Saturday, second Saturday in February, right before the Super Bowl.
Yes, and last year on our team that went out there, we had Jamie Taylor, our coroner.
Yes,
with us.
that's right. Jamie was there.
Eric Onisco, the mayor of the city. I like having the coroner just in case I went into cardiac arrest. I got somebody to take care of me.
For sure.
But it was good.
Bring water shoes if you're coming in, because you do walk out on those oysters.
And don't dive in like that young man did and scratched himself up.
Yeah. So there's some things to think about, but it's a fun event, and we'll definitely hope to see you there. These Sheriff Sit-Downs are presented by another great community sponsor, our Community Credit Union. And of course, we thank them for all the work that they do to support the Sheriff's Office, not only in Mason, but in all the counties that they have offices. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.